All right, welcome in. We're going to be reacting to some Abby Phillips responding to Trump's attempts to downplay racism. Oh, excuse me, slavery. Slavery. Trump's just trying to downplay slavery. So she starts the segment off with like 4 minute history on slavery and how it's ruined her life and a bunch of people that are just like her. Not too interested in the lecture, even though she states she ain't lecturing. Let's just get right into the panel.
Who were boosted from their backs. True history should include everything. Yes, the evils and
True history should include everything. I can't even make it through one sentence with this woman. So the only history these people want to get talked about is slavery. That's it. That is all American history. There's slavery and then there's today. There's nothing in between. That's it. That's all you need to know. You're still evil. Pay me.
the horrors too. And museums are supposed to be places that protect those stories, the images.
You could tell the story, but don't make it the only story. That's all we're saying here. This is common sense, American exceptionalism. The whole world was built off this country. If you don't love this country, you're in the wrong place. You are blessed to be here. I can promise you that. I've seen way worse.
The lessons, the very things that inform so much of our current state of our republic, from racism to poverty. No matter how painful or, in the president's words, how horrible the lesson. Now, just listen to one formerly enslaved man describe what slavery is like in his own words.
You know what I learned?
Please surprise.
All right, skipping ahead. I'm sure it's a great story. Just want to get straight into the panel, and I spent too much time on the intro.
To see President Trump basically saying the quiet part out loud, that this review of the Smithsonian is not about even just something vague about reviewing history to make sure that it's fair. He wants to make it so that it talks less about slavery. What does that say to you?
Well, I think it's an effort. It's part of a larger effort to both stainwash and whitewash American history.
That's a derogatory term, and I'm offended. Don't say whitewash like that. You need my permission.
And essentially erase all of the parts and disappear all of the parts that make Americans, that make President Trump uncomfortable, that feel distasteful, that are a reflection of the actual real and horrific parts of our history. And I find it a little ironic. You know, earlier today, as I was listening to some of the commentary, my first thought was, wait a second. I wonder if the president has actually ever visited any of the Smithsonian museums. And then I remembered that in 2017, he actually took a tour of the National Museum of African American History and Culture.
Let me just play, actually, what he said during that tour. Listen to this.
I had the privilege of visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture right here in Washington, D.C. It's a new, beautiful Smithsonian museum that serves as a shining example.
Hold up. If we have an African American history museum that's Smithsonian ran, where's the Latin American? Where's the Hispanics? Do the Asians get a museum too? Everybody deserves a museum if we're going to be doing it like this. If we're going to separate history based off of race, like we all got different history, then let's do it. Let's not leave the Hispanics, get the Latinos a museum. I bet you they would love one.
Example of African Americans' incredible contributions to our culture, our society, and our history. It also tells of the great struggle for freedom and equality that prevailed against the sins of slavery and the injustice of discrimination. The work and love of the people who helped create such a masterpiece is a testament to the legacy of so many leaders it honors.
So was it?
I guarantee you, if they play it, I guarantee you, we can look this clip up. I guarantee Trump probably starts saying, now, slavery was a very small portion of our history. Let's remind you that America is full of great and outstanding accomplishments that have lifted up the whole world, and that no country has ever been as powerful as the United States of America and impeded on less rights at the same time of other sovereign nations. Now, you could get into the forever war arguments, and I'm totally with you on that. I think we need to stay out of those places. But as far as occupying territory and just outright stealing stuff overseas, we don't see it happening in America, where you would see that done historically by leaders throughout all the history had they had this kind of power consolidated.
That he didn't believe what he read from the teleprompter as he recorded that video, or what?
I'm really struggling to understand in a lot of ways, particularly given that the tour that he took with director Lonnie Bunch was actually a reflection of really the mastery that and really the care and the patience that historians, that scholars, that curators put into the Museum of African American History and Culture. It is not just about the horrors of slavery, although it tells that very important story. It actually follows this really brilliant model where you move through the museum and it tells the story.
Again, this is another woman that looks like she's maybe like 1/16 African American, but she's made it her entire identity. Like this is her identity. Guarantee you she's got like a African studies major or something like that. This is her identity because she's trying to prove her blackness.
Story not just of enslaved Americans in America, but also of the resilience, of the triumph. And in doing so, it tells a story that is very much about democracy and about a quest for democracy and the way that Americans both built this country, but also the story and the narrative of like a truly American experience. And so for the president, I think, to just simply erase that and push that away tells us, particularly after praising it a few years ago, tells us that this is part of a much larger agenda. This is part of a much larger agenda to erase things that really, I think the country is just not refuses to deal with, and it's really uncomfortable.
He said as much by ending this post with, "This country cannot be woke because woke is broke." He
Facts.
says we have to have the hottest country in the world,
That's my president.
and we want people to talk about it, including our museums.
She's like, oh my God. Woke is broke. Can't even. How could woke be broke? Woke ain't broke. I'm woke. I can't be broke.
Why is he equating talking about slavery with woke?
Well, look, I think, let me just start this conversation by saying that my personal view is slavery was a reprehensible incident.
Everybody agrees. I'm not even starting a conversation with that anymore. I'm not going to say slavery was bad. We all know that. And throughout human history, every race has been enslaved for as long as people have been around. It just is what it is. Where do you think the word comes from? The Slavs. I mean, like, don't even pander at this point. You're going to say slavery's bad. We know. Everybody knows.
Institution. I agree with your words that it was our original sin. We also fought a war to eradicate it and to get over it as a
How many
country.
thank yous?
And that was a necessary thing that happened, and a lot of people died, and we did eradicate it, and that's a good thing. I think what he's asking is, in our museums, what defines us? Are we going to be defined by the worst moment or the worst institution or the worst mistake we ever made? Or are we going to be defined by what we've done moving forward to get over it and to become the greatest nation on the earth? My belief is that he wants to look at these museums, not because he wants to do away with the idea that slavery occurred, but that he wants to ask a very simple question. Are we going to present ourselves as being exceptional or not? And I think he believes there is an effort by some to continue to try to define us from our worst moment instead of try to focus and define us based on our best moments, which start.
These ladies are infuriated. I mean, look at her look of disgust as Scott just talks the most basic common sense. This is why Democrat numbers are plunging. They're plunging. Like, do some self-reflecting, look in the mirror, and ask yourself, is this a popular opinion? Maybe I've been calling people racist for too long, and they're just sick of it.
Started when we eradicated slavery and began to move forward as the light of the world. And so that's what I think.
Makes museums, that's what makes us an exceptional nation, is because they tell the history and the story of our country, and therefore, these horrible, horrific moments in our history. The original sin, as Abby talked about, when it comes to slavery, has we of course did eradicate it, but look where we've come today. And I think those museums, like to your point, make America exceptional. And in museums all around the world that document atrocities, whether it be.
Yeah, if that's the case, let's start an atrocities museum. Let's start a museum dedicated to atrocities. Since you want the standard museum to just say negative stuff about America, Let's start a museum that's just nothing but negative stuff about America. Then you don't even gotta pretend. We don't gotta pretend like we care about the history. We don't gotta care. We don't gotta pretend like. I mean, do these people just go to these museums and speed walk past everything positive and go straight to things they should be angry about? These are some masochists. These are some sick people. They just sit here looking for ways to get offended all day long. Yup. Sky's blue. White supremacy. I don't like that. Anyway, if you made it this long, I really appreciate you. Like and subscribe. Come back for more.